Do, 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 do. There we go.
And we are live.
Awesome. Coming through live. Cool. Well, in our first Patreon exclusive here, I'm actually going to start off this episode, not the official episode, but the Patreon episode, with what may have been contact earlier today with a time traveler. This is from an Instagram account which messaged us. The name of the account is John Trippin, with a cartoon of a man tapping the clock on
Fully
his
tripping.
wrist.
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, I think you'll be able to tell where it was me responding and them responding. He said, "Yo." I said, "Yo, I need your help right now." "What's up?" "I want to forward you my old Instagram reset to your phone right now because I just got a new iPhone. I just need you to copy it and send it to me. Can you do that for me?" I said, "I don't know who you are." He said, "What's your number so I can forward you the link? I'm John now." I said, dot, 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 but what about later? He said, "Now, my bad." And I said, "What about before?" He didn't say anything. Then I was like, John, did I lose you?" He said, "No." "So who are you and why do you need my phone number specifically?" He's like, "So I can forward you the link." "John." And I'm like, "Why do you want the cookies from my device to hack my account?" "Oh, what the fuck? No." And I'm like, "I'm not done, John." LOL. And he's like, "How on earth would I ever be able to do that?" And I said, "Bye, John. I'll talk to you later." Now, as a PSA to folks, when automated programs, right, like the reset links on social media accounts and stuff, when you fill it out and you're like, "Hey, send me a reset link," and they send you this long ass link with all this code and shit, that
Mm-hmm.
code grabs the cookies of the accounts you're logged into and then sends that to whatever the fuck program, right?
The cookie
And
jar. Mm-hmm.
that's how it knows that it came from your email. And then you
Yep.
show up on a page where it's like set your new password, right? It's the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it came from your email. They grab the session information. Session information is all the shit that tells devices, like, if you like close out of Facebook while you're on Chrome or you're on the web browser and then you open it back up, you're still logged in. That's because there's
Mm-hmm.
a session and there's a cookie. It expires after a day, after 2 days, however long, it happens to be.
Chocolate chip.
So him asking for, yes, this chocolate chip cookie, was him trying to get my phone number
Mm-hmm.
and a reset link, which would have all my browser information. It was a way for him to hack the account. But
Mm-hmm.
luckily, I saw into the future and stopped that from happening. Now,
What
now that we're
about
dealing
now?
these pesky
What
ass
about
time
now?
travelers trying to go back in time and do time crime.
Mm-hmm. It would have been really funny. I mean, you did keep going about what about later? What about now? And that his name was Now, John Now. And you're
It's
like,
like,
that
it's
was great
John.
that you
Well,
kept going.
it was like
It's
John, comma,
John.
now. And I was like, what about before? What
Are
about
you?
later?
Yeah. What about now and later?
Hold on,
Good
John.
candies. Hold on, John. We
It
got to
was,
go somewhere.
it was good. Thank you, John, for the content. You
Mm-hmm.
tried to steal from me, but I just stole from you,
Stole
bitch.
from you.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Let's hop into this shit.
Mm-hmm.
This week, we continue our deep dive into Saruki. Great start. This week, we continue our deep dive into Sarukio Kyuchi, a time traveler who might be the only person in history to have ever pulled a hat trick on the Grim Reaper. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 106 of the Black Cat Report. My name is Gil, and joining me here today is the only man to have ever correctly predicted the outcome of Culpeper, Virginia's annual squirrel boat races 6 years in a row. Joey.
Thank you. That's correct. Also, Culpepper did paralyze Superman. So I don't know if most people know that, but it paralyzed Christopher Reeves. My hometown was the place that Christopher Reeves was paralyzed on a horseback. Just so you all know, if we're going to
horrible.
time travel, speaking of time travel, because Superman could time travel, it is
Let's do
also
it.
Sunday Fun Day. And you gave me a platform by introducing me. So I'm going to go ahead and just let it go. So thank you all for listening out there, and we're excited.
Yes. Now, look, we got a lot of news, but we're gonna freaking skip it. Sans one exception. Joey, take it away.
We want to thank our Patreon listeners because this is the first time that we are actually live. So, for our tiered subscription people, the sexiest producer and our research assistant, you can watch me and Gil record our episodes live. Obviously, we're going to have chat clicked off so we're not too distracted by everything you're sending us and, basically telling us we're terrible people and we shouldn't both wear blue at the same time, because then it confuses our voices as well as how we look. So we're just trying to confuse you. And we want to thank you for our first sexiest producer, Copy Kitty, for being our first Patreon subscriber and member. And we thank you so much and hopefully you're listening. And if not, we have everything, you'll hear it later.
You'll catch
You'll
it
get
later.
to see us later.
You'll catch it later.
Yep.
Yeah, but
And
seriously,
if you get
thank you, Copy Kitty.
Yeah, and if you get time and you want to listen to this or see us live, because we love doing this live. We actually have started jazzing up our little live shows a little more. You get to see us live if you subscribe to Sexiest Producer. 6 to 12 hours after we record it, like that.
Yes. Now, let's dive back in to the wildly true story of Tsuruhiko Kyuchi, Part 2. In 1964, when Kyuchi was still just a wide-eyed fifth grader, he happened across a book that would go on to change the trajectory of his life. The book was about space, and 10-year-old Kyuchi was quickly consumed by the facts and theories he was learning about in the vast, expanding universe, the Big Bang, and the endless varieties of planets stretching into the far reaches of science and imagination.
Mm-hmm.
But within the starlit backdrop of this youthful budding passion bloomed a single burning infatuation. You see, the same children's book that moved him to start looking up at night also designed Kyuchi's fate in the form of one simple fact. He read that if you're the first person to discover a comet, it gets named after you. And this idea, this one little detail, immediately left Kyuchi obsessed with becoming a comet hunter, making new discoveries, and ultimately having his name forever tied to one of these mysterious cosmic travelers. It's a pretty dope fact to learn as a little kid and be like, holy shit, something up there could be named after me.
Yeah,
that's
I was
pretty...
today years old when I figured that out. So, so when I figured that out,
it's pretty dope. It's pretty awesome. Well, while fads and obsessions can often be an hourly cycle for children, his young love wasn't a temporary fling. His passion, coupled with the persistence only a 10-year-old could manifest, gradually won over everyone's hearts and minds at school until finally the day came that his homeroom teacher and entire fifth grade class all pulled together some money and took a field trip into town where they purchased a telescope for their school.
Cool.
Soon, an astronomy club was born, and every day when the last school bell rang, Kyuchi was always the first one waiting at the club's door to get in. Unsurprisingly, this childhood fascination with the heavens is what ultimately led him to joining Japan's Self-Defense Air Force with the hopes of becoming a pilot, which we know from part 1 panned out in the most horrific way possible.
Yes.
But in the 2 years leading up to the night of his fatigue-induced fatal spiral on the floor in the corner of the control tower, Kyuchi was already on the path to building his legend. You see, once upon a time, there was this thing that was invented in the late 60s by the US military called ARPANET, which stands for the Advanced Research Projects Agency Network. Joey, do you know what ARPANET is?
No, I want you to tell me, please.
Awesome. Well, ARPANET led
Wouldn't it be
to
surprising if I
maybe
did?
I wouldn't be surprised. I
Yeah,
honestly, with you, I wouldn't be surprised. But
true.
ARPANET led to maybe one of the most significant developments in modern human history because ARPANET was an interconnected reporting, communications, and data sharing system that, when finally released to the public, evolved to become what we now know as the internet. That shit
That's cool.
already existed in the 60s.
That makes
I
sense.
had no fucking clue.
I would say that I wouldn't know that either, but that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So think about how it made it much easier for us to go to the moon.
It's true, but think about what computers were in the 60s.
There were huge rooms, basically, with one like
Yes.
processing power of our
So-
phone. So
Think
Yeah.
about the communication infrastructure in the 60s. Like
it was basically
it
just one
blew
big
my
Excel sheet.
more or less, yeah. But I could see the late 70s, early 80s, but when I actually started digging into this, I was like, when did this actually holy shit. Like it was in like the early to mid 60s. ARPANET was already up and running. And parts
Yeah.
of the not just and that's the thing, not just in the United States, but it was starting to be set up and connected from the United States to allies internationally.
Hmm.
That's fucking nuts.
yeah.
Well,
Wow. Okay.
here's the deal. Allegedly, young Kyuchi, who had been trained in its use in order to report and communicate flights while working as a traffic control tower operator, he may have played a small role in liberating the internet.
Hmm.
After seeing what ARPANET was capable of, Kyuchi became fascinated by its potential, and at some point around 1975, about a year before his near-death experience in 76, he found himself at what would now be described as an early tech forum where some of the smartest minds in the world were discussing computers and their potential. And in that room was the co-founder of a brand new business which at the time was less than a year old. His name was Bill Gates. And while Kyuchi sat there listening to him speak, he was absolutely astonished by the drive and determination of this young American who visited Japan to speak about computers.
Wow.
And it was during these talks that Kyuchi spoke up, saying that ARPANET should be connected to the computers that Gates and his team were trying to build for the public. But almost as soon as those words came out, his idea was shot down by U.S. military representatives present, who quickly stated that that was way the hell too risky and not practical at all.
That's truth that they would do that because that's also in their nature to shoot down stuff, military representatives. So Bill Gates was literally putting up gates for people to not. Come on.
But
Come on,
I had no clue that like I think it was Microsoft was started in 1974. I had
That's crazy.
no clue. Like if you look at time, like there's not a lot of articles that reference it. Actually, it was kind of a pain. I kept finding stuff from the 80s and early 90s,
Yeah.
but no. If you trace it all the way back, it was started a year before this. There is a high likelihood that the story might be real. That Kyuchi
So
may have helped because at the time Gates was building personal computers. He wasn't. This was decades
Yeah.
before the internet was even conceived of. Like he was just building them as personal computation devices. That was it.
Yep.
Kyuchi was there.
So
He was familiar with these systems because
Yeah.
the Air Force, like the air base that he worked at, was super important. He was trained in this shit. And so him speaking up was like, that might have fucking happened.
yeah, true. Thinking about that though, so Al Gore, not the creator of the internet. Kyuchi,
No,
creator of the internet.
I mean, I'm just glad someone's saying it. Well,
You know, somebody's got
well,
it.
here's the deal. Within those same 2 years of service, Kyuchi had another brush with history, but this time it was due to a direct command when, at some point around 1975 or early 1976, he was ordered by the Japanese military to not approve of any flights within Japan's airspace after 10 p.m. for an entire week.
Hmm.
This was a nationwide order. And it was during this quiet time that civilian reports of UFOs skyrocketed. And it was also when Kyuchi saw his first flying saucer.
Now
Now,
that had UFOs.
now, when looking back at how there were literally no reasons given for all this hush hush that was happening, it seems obvious to Kyuchi, or when looking back now at how no reasons were given and everything was hush hush, it seems obvious to Kyuchi that the government was actively tracking and hunting these unknown crafts, just based off of the radar of military aircraft that was flying around at the time, correlated with reports of strange objects that were 100% not airplanes or jets in the sky. Because
Oh yeah.
when all of that traffic in the sky goes down to zero, it becomes really obvious what doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
Well, now, I know that that sounds like maybe about as much of a stretch as Kyuchi helping to liberate the internet, but Joey, do you remember what was going on close around that same time in that same area? I'll take that as a no. It
No.
was, in fact, the 15-year-long Darwin UFO flap, which we covered in episodes 60 and 61. The timing, the descriptions, and geographic region all pretty much match up.
In Australia, mate.
Yes, in Australia,
Damn.
but we're also talking about UFOs.
Not-
I mean,
yeah, for sure.
technically,
I mean,
Lumberton was happening at this exact same time, but on the opposite end of the planet. Technically, it could have been there, but it seemed like that little triangle was really just wanting to hang out just in Lumberton for that week.
yeah.
But no,
Some
the
lumber.
the actual large lights, the large spheres, the large objects, and their erratic movement and everything matched up almost exactly
Damn.
with what the fuck was happening in Japan. And at the same time that this massive order came down, which shut down all flights coming in, out of, and over Japan every single day of an entire week after 10 p.m. until like it was like 5 in the morning or some crazy time. It was like, that's a lot of commerce and travel that's just shut down.
Crazy. I mean, we think of it now as like the last 3 days with like the Microsoft
Yeah.
error and it stopped most planes and stuff. How bad that's been. That's like purposefully shut down for like a week.
Yeah.
Oof.
That's
Damn.
a pretty big one. So a little bit more backstory about why Kyuchi's job in at the control tower might have been extra stressful. Well, as we know from part one, the stress of working in air traffic control for the JSDF led to one of the most terrible nights imaginable. And ultimately, after getting to a real hospital the next day, he was given 7 days to live. But those 7 days were not just limited to his body slowly deteriorating. Kyuji's mind, though foggy and wrapped with pain, was still occupied by the thoughts of a dying man, like anybody in that situation would have. As he laid there, waiting to pass, he worked through his beliefs. He knew from his love of astronomy that before the Big Bang, there was nothing. Just complete nothingness, which at the time, being, barely more than a living mummy, sounded like pure relief, a pleasant return to a painless, empty nothingness. Literally,
Mm-hmm.
nothing sounded
An
better to
empty,
him
empty
than
vessel.
his active experience, his current life, right?
For sure.
So when the so when the time finally came and he found himself led to his family in the afterlife, then later through space and time by just his own thoughts, well, we'll just say that this all added up to a major reevaluation of his beliefs once he made it through and came out alive on the other side of surgery and subsequent recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not really knowing what to make of anything that happened, but remembering most of it, Kyuchi quickly took to following up on the experiments that he'd conducted while dead. Keep in mind, he wasn't just bouncing in and out of people's bodies to prank them, but to set up potential proof later on, the fact that his journey really did take place. That
Yeah.
was kind of his thinking at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
And while his mother and sisters couldn't recall hearing his reassuring screams, his father, on the other hand, who was in the room when Kyuchi first came back, recalled hearing his son's voice saying, "I'll be okay." But it's important to note here that this experience was then immediately followed up by the start of an intense, multi-day long headache. So, that said, what about his other shenanigans? Well, after being released from the hospital, Kyuchi soon made the 4.5 hour long drive to Kumio town. I have some dust in my throat. Sure as hell not all the cobwebs in this studio. That's
Old
great
Dusty
to
Throat
talk.
Gill. That's what they call him.
Well, after being released from the hospital, Kyuchi soon made the 4.5 hour long drive to Komitown, Japan. Along with just simply wanting to reconnect with his old hometown friends. Again, he had just died and was kind of going over values in life. He also wanted to follow up with his gas station experiment. But unfortunately for big city Kyuchi, he was only able to confirm his out-of-body experience when, shortly after arriving in town, he ran into the friend who he'd temporarily possessed and found out pretty quick they were, in fact, still pissed at him.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Saying something along the lines of, "How come you didn't stop and say hi when you were driving past here?" To which Kyuchi replied, "Driving past here? When?" To which his friend replied, "On April 10th, when all of our friends were in town visiting and we saw you drive by the gas station and we ran out and tried to say hello, and then you just drove by us." Well, by that point in the conversation, Kyuchi began trying his best to come clean and explain what really happened. That he had, in fact, been hundreds of miles away in a hospital and had been dead at the time they saw him. But for some reason, after telling him all that, his friend had a hard time trusting him.
I mean,
I don't
yeah.
know why.
He was like, "Man, you're dead right."
Where's the...
Yes. I strive for crickets. I strive for crickets.
Ah, yes, the applause of crickets.
Hey, crickets can applaud. With they're just applauding with their legs.
No, but where was I? Yeah, but for some reason, after telling him all that, his friend had a hard time trusting him. In fact, the more Kyuchi tried to confess to what had really taken place, the less his friend started to doubt that Kyuchi had really possessed him, and the more he started to look at Kyuchi with a deeper anger and suspicion.
For sure.
You see,
yes.
in the immediate aftermath of Kyuchi's experiment, all of the young men present at the gas station were stricken with intense headaches that ultimately led to them spending multiple days bedridden. In the end, the guy never trusted Kyuchi again, saying after what had happened, he wasn't going to ever be able to be sure if Kyuchi was brainwashing him or not. Like, he was just like, I can't trust you anymore, man. What
For
the fuck?
sure.
Like, I believe
Yeah.
that happened because I have to, because there's proof, because yada yada. But like, why the fuck would you violate me like that, man?
Yeah, that's. I mean, yeah, he's trying to prove something to him, but like that is kind of a. I mean, he could have just done it to, if he didn't inherit the guy's body, I guess he wouldn't been able to do it, right? He wouldn't if he didn't inherit the guy's body. So yeah, I guess that definitely is a violation.
Big city
But
QG.
BCK. I mean,
BCK.
he is really fucking up right now. He's like, hey, I'm gonna try to do something cool, but really, this guy was dead. Like, it's funny to think about. The guy's like, the guy's pissed that he did this, and he's like, but dude, I was dead. Like, I was dead. Like, I died, and this is. You're pissed. I took my time after I died and got out of the hospital, to come visit you. And like he's thinking, and that guy's like, hey, don't come visit me again.
I've heard a lot of weird arguments at gas stations, I'll be honest.
Oh, yeah. Hotspot.
I wish I could have been there for this weird ass argument that I'm sure was a yelling match at the gas station. I get it. You died. But why did you possess my body and make me think that you were in a car so that I just ran up on a stranger? It's like, dude, I was trying to prove that time travel was real. No, that's not okay to do.
None of this is okay. Like,
You're
time
just
travel...
like slowly putting your gas in your car, just being like, do I put more money in your? Like, I was only planning on putting a buck in right now.
Can I just pay for my Funyuns? Can I just pay? Is that the case? Pay for my Funyuns?
Hey, you know what? Keep the change, please. No, this isn't okay. So
That's
awkward.
not okay. Do you want me to inhabit your body too? I gotta go.
Bro, what if I crawled inside of you and tricked you and all your friends into seeing me? It's like, no, it wasn't like that. I was dead.
I was dead. Okay, like this.
You
doesn't
always
matter.
say that.
You're always dead.
Always saying that.
You're
you know
dead
what?
to
This
me.
is why they all call you Big City Cutie. This is why. Coming down here with your big city ideas. But you've changed into me, but then back into you, and it's fucking weird.
Yeah. I don't
We're
get
simple
it.
out
I
here.
don't get
we
it.
Don't do that.
Yeah, we don't inhabit people's bodies.
Oh my god. Boop. I shouldn't have clipped my nails. Now I'm trying to open up a drink.
Oh, it's Big City Gill over there with the nail clipping.
Now, near-death experiences, as a rule, tend to dramatically change a person, and Kyuchi was no exception to this. From how he viewed his place in the universe to his personal goals and the meaning of life itself. After what he had been through and subsequently proven to himself as having been real, it was understandably impossible to fall back to being an atheist or wasting his life as an overburdened control tower operator. But with all of that said, he wasn't immediately embracing his near-death afterlife or time travel experiences either. You see, after his follow-ups turned into fallout with his friends, Kyuchi decided he wasn't going to make a point to push his story publicly and tell the world. Yeah. And while he did do medical interviews and everything was documented, the truth is, Kyuchi felt embarrassed, and so for the next 20 or so years, he mostly kept it all to himself and decided to completely give up on his own life. I desperately need to get printer ink.
Oh, it's coming. It should be here by Thursday. So,
dear God, I can only read half my page. All right. And so for the next 20 years, he mostly kept it all to himself and decided to completely give up on his old life, opting instead to take his childhood passion for comet hunting more seriously. And so, shortly after being discharged from the Japanese self-defense forces due to obvious medical reasons, he ordered a custom-made set of high-powered binoculars, but these binoculars are most likely not what you would typically picture, right? These things
Mhm.
weighed over 65 pounds, and they had to be coupled with a steel stand to be held up. But this was genius, though, because they afforded a broader view of the night sky that could be adjusted quicker than a typical telescope. These were
Yeah.
like insane, like 2.5 foot long binoculars that required a stand where QG stood straight up and like
Yeah.
use them to look at that. It's kind of a genius move when you're hunting something like comets that are
Yeah.
obviously moving in the
It's it
sky,
it's
right?
it I picture it as something very comical. It's just these huge
Kind of.
fucking things.
Kind
Yeah,
of.
very comical. This guy
I've
just
seen
sitting there with these,
photos a
yeah,
little
like
bit.
huge thing like this big. It's kind of like looking like this, and you're just like, what the fuck is he doing?
And like
Very
if
Roger
you were in a
Rabbit.
helicopter, plane, or UFO flying by, and you look down, it was just like Looney Tunes style giant
Yeah,
eyes.
yeah, yeah. It's like
Boing.
we're not going
What
over
is-
there. Guy's too
Not
nerdy.
yet.
That guy's too nerdy.
We're not
Yeah.
landing yet.
We're not ready
Like,
for that. No.
that looks worse than 47. You remember what happened then?
Yeah. Oh
Roswell.
God.
But well, yeah. So what was I? The night sky could be adjusted quicker than typical telescope, and by the early 1990s, when QG was just in his late 30s, he was able to finally make his childhood dreams come true. Not once, but twice, when he discovered two comets that now bear his name. I have the documentation from NASA and the official organizations, and it does also mention his binoculars.
Okay.
But there's more to this. You see, Kyuchi, who, if you Google his full name, is world renowned as an amateur astronomer. He became famous not just because of the two comets, but because he contribute but because he continued on to make massive contributions to astronomy. So much so that his fellow peers in the community have added his name to their own comet discoveries as a way to give honor to his decades of achievement within the field.
Wow.
But one of his discoveries stands out above all the rest. It was in 1992 when Kyuchi rediscovered a comet after it had been lost for the previous 130 years. Now, why is that such a big deal? Well,
Mm-hmm.
this comet, which had been meticulously recorded and constantly tracked by astronomers since 69 BC, is famous within the astronomy community. The comet's name is Swift-Tuttle, a comet you might know as the host body for the a comet you might know as the host body for the Perseus meteor shower, which happens every year between July and August, this year peaking around August 14th. Or, if not from that, then maybe you'll remember it from some of its more famous roles in Hollywood, like when it played as the inspiration for the main character in movies like Armageddon and Deep Impact. You see, besides bringing Aerosmith out of retirement and killing Bruce Willis, the reason Swift-Tuttle has been tracked through all of recorded history is because when its orbit swings the comet near Earth every 133 years, anyone looking up at the night sky will see it. And furthermore, the view gets a little bit bigger every time it passes.
Perfect.
At 16 miles wide, Swift-Tuttle is more than twice the estimated size of whatever hit Earth and turned all the dinosaurs into chicken nuggies. Swift-Tuttle is quite literally the number one known space threat to all life on Earth. And in almost exactly 101 years from us recording this episode, sometime between July and August of 2125, Swift Tuttle will be swinging by to say hello as it comes within 14,229,400 miles of the Earth, which sounds far until you realize that's only 59 and a half times farther away than the moon. And those numbers, which are just guesstimates, are based on the most optimistic estimates. As it stands right now, there is in fact a large portion of the astronomy community estimating Swift-Tuttle will be coming way closer than that to Earth, with a number of well-respected models predicting either the moon or the Earth will be taking a direct hit, or if God puts Kobe in the game, it might narrowly pass between the Earth and moon. Let's stop and think about this for a second. This comet,
That would be
which is
cool.
guaranteed to swing by us and not guaranteed to not hit us in 101 years, might wipe out all life as we know it.
Cool.
Kyuchi found it.
Good. Thank you, Kyuchi.
What
What a hero. Seriously.
This is I have the
Hero,
links to
dude.
the Wired articles at the time and all sorts of other shit. He did this, right? Well,
It was the binoculars.
yes. Either way, when Kyuchi rediscovered Swift-Tuttle, he also estimated a new return date and how close it would get to Earth. His estimates were then checked and validated by other astronomers at the time, and this news soon reached the inboxes labeled "Oh shit" on the desks of world leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And because of this, because of Kyuchi's rediscovery, world governments have been actively working on how to deal with Swift-Tuttle, with most of them concluding we should all collectively fuck it up its order. With most of them concluding we should all collectively fuck up its orbit by nuking it.
Yep.
Which, if you remember, was literally the plot to Armageddon that was released in 1998, which came out in theaters only a few years after world governments publicly acknowledged the threat of Swift-Tuttle and began sharing their active plans to deal with it.
Yes. Pretty much the government was just like Swift-Tuttle. Pretty much the government was like, Swift-Tuttle, you're about to get a swift rebuttal.
Hell yeah, that was good.
And
No crickets on
Blam
that.
with
No
some
cricket
nukes.
applause on
with
that.
some nukes.
Now, why the hell did I tell you all that? Well, most importantly, your grandkids will be there for Aerosmith's next reunion tour, but also because this means it's not too far of a stretch to
Stones,
say,
too.
what? They weren't in Armageddon.
No, but they'll be on a reunion tour 101 years later because Keith Richards will never die.
Well, I mean, we know that, but well, where was I? Now, why the hell did I tell you all that? Well, most importantly, your grandkids will be there for Aerosmith's next reunion tour, but also because this means it's not too far of a stretch to say that Kyuchi may have already helped save all life on Earth in the future. That is not as far a stretch to make.
Nope.
He quite literally got the ball rolling on us coming together as a species and getting agreements set up, and like Lord knows how slow we are with processes and planning things. And if you check
Oh yeah.
regular news, if you just check the news and keep updated on shit, which Joey, I've been sending you articles immediately followed up by Kyuchi over and over again for weeks now. That is still the plan. And it keeps coming up. That is the current best plan, is the shit that Kyuchi got snowballed. Like, he's the one that started this fucking process.
Yeah. Nuke.
This dude's crazy. Like,
Mhm.
okay, so
Dino nuggets in a microwave.
Dino Nuggies. So if you're keeping score at home, Kyuchi may have inspired Bill Gates and helped to liberate the internet while also assisting in a massive UFO hunting operation. He then died from one of the rarest syndromes in history, came back from the dead after he traveled through space and time and possessed somebody's body, then proved he actually did all of that, then went on to discover two comets, as well as potentially helping to save all life on Earth while also inspiring multiple Hollywood blockbusters. This dude's life story is a goddamn iceberg of incredible events.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and dear Lord, it doesn't end there. Because not too long after his rediscovery of Swift Tuttle, Kiyuchi was invited by multiple organizations to speak at their events, where he was put up in front of crowds of scientists and experts, including one such event when he was 40, where he was the keynote speaker in a large tatami room. It was the same room he had already described as having seen himself speaking in when he traveled to his own future during his death when he was 22 years old. Dear God, that was a confusing sentence to write.
Good God, that's a confusing sentence to listen to.
Do you remember from part 1 where he traveled to when he was 40 years old and it kind of really just like pushed him over the edge, like, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be healthy. Why am I speaking to a bunch of people that are like, paying so much attention to me and shit? Because at the time, he was just a 22-year-old, like, enlisted, service member that was dying of a horrible disease and like nobody fucking listened to him for shit,
Yeah.
And then at 40, he's like, whoa, all these people are paying attention to me and I'm in this like beautiful fucking like room and I'm making all these official speeches and yada yada. This is fucking nuts. And he said that when he was young and he came out and originally started talking to like his family and the doctors and shit before having the bad experience with his friends and being like, okay, I'm not talking about this anymore.
Yeah.
He called
sure.
it.
Yeah.
He called it to the fucking T.
Damn.
Like, damn. He had no way at the time of knowing that he was going to discover something that would quite literally influence international nuclear policy on saving us from space.
No.
He couldn't have called that. He could have tried to make himself important in some other way, but like, how the fuck could he have? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
a bunch of scientists and military officials and stuff like that. That's
people were real. People were real into him after he basically rediscovered something that had been missing that everybody knew eventually would completely wipe out all life on Earth. They were like, damn, you're a really good astronomer, dude. What's your secret?
Well, I guess everybody else was using friggin' telescopes. And he's like, open your eyes bigger with these
Wait a second.
binoculars.
2 eyes, twice as good. I have a plan.
Exactly.
I'm Kiyuchi.
I got a plan.
Yeah.
Yep. Big City Kiyuchi.
Big City Kiyuchi. Well,
strikes again.
Between seeing his future play out just as he said it would and gaining legitimate notoriety for his accomplishments, Kiyuchi found himself more open to sharing what led him to these moments, and he began to write. By 1995, he had authored and released his first book, The Memory of the Space, which became an instant bestseller. 8 years later, he'd return to writing and release his second book, The Starry Heavens Teach Our Way of Living. These are obviously translated from Japanese.
Yeah.
Which, that book was dedicated to how he sees the role of humans on this planet and the concept that he's developed after 27 years of quietly reflecting on his experiences. It was the concepts that he developed about time, death, teleportation, and time travel. Topics that surely, occupied his mind every single night as he stood outside from sunset to sunrise, staring up into space and not talking really to anybody about what had happened.
If he was a time traveler, what if he just like kept writing the book and then like he and then going back in time because that time he wrote it, it didn't become a bestseller. He's like, "Fuck, gotta go back in time again." And he like changed like the title a little bit.
He's just like reading reviews, like, "Damn, I should have
Yeah.
included that." Going back.
Yeah, and goes back and fixes
Honestly?
it, and he's like, "Perfect book." One bad review. Fuck Yelp.
Funny you should mention that. Well, much like his first book, his second work took off and became a bestseller almost immediately. And even to this day, I just checked at the time of this recording, 20 years after it was released, the original Japanese language version is still getting reviews monthly. And it boasts a 4.5-star rating with 977 reviews on Amazon. In terms of accomplishments, that is absolutely huge for an author, let alone when the reach is so limited by language demographics. This is just printed in the original like Japanese. That's not a huge language region, you know?
No.
Like he's almost up to 1,000, and if you look through the reviews, it's like every 2 weeks going back
That's
for
cool.
years and years and years. Like people are still buying this. So
He's just literally showing up in random people's houses and time traveling, dropping a book off, and then traveling back in time. Yeah.
no, but I did translate like the reviews and stuff, all incredibly positive. I think the only 4.5-star reviews that I was seeing was, I wish he would have focused more on the afterlife and less about space and comets, because he mixed in his views of life and everything like that, and a lot of folks were just kind of like, this was incredible, I wish there's more. Like it was just all overwhelming. A lot of folks were like, hey, after so and so died, this gave me relief, this made me feel better. Like it really hit the hearts of a lot of people.
Yeah. Did you read that 0-star review?
There was no 0-star review.
No, you missed it. It was some guy saying, "Man, he went into my body and confused me."
What's your phone number?
I hate
Oh,
this
no.
book. What's your phone number? What's your phone number? He never gave me his phone number.
Fuck you, big city Cucci.
Very weird.
Signed, Craig's gas station.
Yep.
Well, with all that said, there's going to be dramatic inspiration for his third book, which is why we're going to hop ahead about 6. Sorry. But with all that said, again, ink's missing on the page. Sorry, y'all. Like, I feel like I'm reading, like, my ink was printed with just a zebra that just kind of like rolled over top of the page, where it's like every few words are just missing. And I'm like, I think that's what I wrote there.
This is why we're doing the Patreon, everybody, is so that Gil can afford ink for his printer, so that he can print out his scripts, unlike the rest of us people that are in the future and just using Google Documents.
I have no arguments with that.
No rebuttal. No rebuttal. It's okay. It's your preference. No big deal. No big deal,
It's
Gil.
my preference.
It's all great.
You know what I'm saying?
It's
like,
great.
in order to make something great, you have to sacrifice something, right? Maybe it's because my mom's a witch. I don't know. But, you have to make a sacrifice. So, like, I like to sacrifice small trees every time we do an episode in order to help them achieve greatness. There's been a seance and a ceremony every episode, buddy.
Yeah, the greatness of being destroyed.
Just like, well, the less air in the room, the more dizzy people are, and the more my words make sense. Just think about it.
Now you're getting somewhere. Now you're making sense.
Where the heck balls was I? Okay, so, but with all that said, there's going to be a dramatic inspiration for his third book, which is why we're going to hop ahead 6 years to 2009, when Kyuchi found himself in charge of leading a tour to and from Shanghai, China, where he had brought around 600 astronomy enthusiasts from Japan to watch a total solar eclipse. Well, after arriving and scouting out where they would all gather to view the event, bad news soon settled in. The skies were overcast, and there was more or less a guaranteed chance that there would be severe thunderstorms at the time of the eclipse. Now, I got to add something in here I didn't write down. Originally, because Kyuchi was partnered up. Again, he's a famous astronomer, right? And
Mhm.
like actually I got to bring this up culturally in Japan, comet hunting is actually like a really big pastime. It's a really big hobby for folks
Interesting.
in Japan. Like literally they just get called hunters and it just gets referred
Mm.
to as hunting. Like it's actually like culturally like a thing. It's almost like
It's a
calling
big
somebody
deal.
a fisher, you know, like or a
Mm.
fisherman or whatever. It's just kind of like you just know what the hell that's short for.
Yeah.
If you're like, oh, they're a fisher, you would just be like, they're a small crack in the earth. What the fuck are you talking about? You know, like
Fissure.
I'm from the north, so I have an accent. So the point, no, I thought it was a fisher. Fisher? Yeah, you're right.
Fissure. Fisher.
Hmm.
Fisher is a person who fishes.
What's the percentage on this? 3.5. All right, I can't say that on air. That's embarrassing.
That's okay.
But no, but no, it confused the hell out of me during like when I was like translating interviews because they were like, "Oh, you're a
Mhm.
hunter," and I was like, "What? What the fuck is he hunting?" You know, like,
You know,
and
yeah.
then it would get to like comets and like all this other shit. And it was just a cultural like difference. It was a language
Slang.
barrier. I had to go through like 19 different
Yeah.
tools to figure that out, and I was like, "Oh, comets. That makes sense."
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a super big thing in Japan. So he was kind of like a mild celebrity, coupled with the fact that like he had also not just maybe helped save all life on Earth, right?
Mhm.
Um, but but also had this insane, you know, near death experience and stuff. So he could draw numbers, but at the time,
Yeah.
when he first agreed to help lead this tour, there was only supposed to be 30 people. And the program that he connected to kind of bumped up the numbers a little bit without him knowing.
Just a
So
little.
that now he was leading 600 people.
That is ridiculous. That's way
It's
too
just
many.
I hope
Had to get
people
a
know too.
megaphone.
Dude, from the first time, he just have to possess everybody and convince them they're seeing it.
Yeah,
No, but
yeah.
I hope folks know from their first episode that was nervous laughter about his death and pain. That's just if you don't know by now, that's how I respond to shit. But
Mhm.
so this is all about to be nervous laughter. That was my lead up to that.
Don't tell me he gets struck by lightning.
Better
Cool. Okay.
because he gets hit not once but twice. Not with
Of
lightning,
course.
but
Of course.
rarer
Oh.
than lightning. um, so where the heck balls was I? Yeah. The skies were overcast, and there was more or less a guarantee of severe thunderstorms at the time of the eclipse. Being the head of the tour and the main person who planned it, these prospects began to get to Kyuchi and led to debilitating anxiety and stress. But
Mhm.
to everyone's surprise and relief, when the time came for the crowds to watch the cosmic alignment, the skies opened up and
Nice.
everyone had a perfect view. It was a success. But the damage to the now 55-year-old Kyuchi had already been done.
Mm.
He went back to his hotel room early that night with complaints of severe abdominal cramps. This is nervous laughter.
Not again.
The next morning, after struggling to get out of bed, Kyuchi, still in pain, headed downstairs for breakfast. At which point, upon reaching the lobby, he immediately turned around and got back into the elevator to head up to his room. He was just like, nope, I'm in too much pain. I'm out.
Yeah.
Soon enough, the doors would be opening up to the horror of some of his tour members as they saw Kyuchi lying in a pool of blood on the elevator floor. You can feel safe at this point, assuming that it was pretty much the
That's what I'm
exact
saying.
situation to what happened to him in part 1 of the series.
Mm.
It was the whole fucking process starting over again.
Yeah.
Anyways, this time he wasn't rushed to a baby doctor, but quickly loaded up into an ambulance and sent to a nearby hospital in Shanghai. So that's a win right off the bat, right?
Yeah. As they were taking pictures of him as he was going out in the.
It was thousands of cc's of blood lost.
Uh,
It was like bad.
that's a
It
lot.
was really
yeah,
he
that's a lot.
literally elevator doors opened up on whatever floor it was, and it was like some of the 600 people that were in this hotel that were like, "Oh my fucking god." And he was just
Yeah.
bleeding out of everywhere because the process started back up again.
Yeah. It was like Carrie when I feel like she was in a
Yeah, it's scary.
elevator and it just went all the blood
No,
came
she
out.
was at like a prom.
Oh yeah, all the blood. Does like Carrie, yeah. All the blood just went everywhere. Poor guy. Again. Like he's just like, fuck.
Yeah.
And now he's being wheeled out and all the tour people, the people that are on his tour are just like looking at him because they were probably downstairs.
They're
getting
going to want a
breakfast or
refund.
what- Yeah.
They're going to want a
You
refund.
know, they're definitely going to want a refund because like that's I mean, I'm pretty sure it was pretty expensive.
Mm-hmm. They want, yeah. I was going to make a bad joke about refund.
They
But I
weren't
couldn't
having
think of
fun.
one fast enough.
That's okay.
Do it to myself. Well,
Makes sense.
yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, this time he wasn't rushed to a baby doctor, but quickly loaded up into an ambulance and sent to a nearby hospital in Shanghai. The thing is, though, on the way, his heart stopped, and he died by the time he made it to the hospital, leaving Kyuchi in an out-of-body state, watching from above as his now lifeless body was being taken out of the ambulance via stretcher.
Yeah, again.
But this wasn't Kyuchi's first rodeo. And after having 33 years at that point to think about what had happened last time he died, he was way more prepared for handling the ins and outs of an out-of-body experience. Naturally, he immediately jumped to the fact that, wait a second, I'm here, I'm seeing this. I'm gonna fucking live. What did I always want to do? Like he immediately jumped to that,
Yeah.
and no longer a rookie. No longer a rookie, Kyuchi immediately began pursuing answers to the questions he still had from his last trip. And you know what that means, Joey? It's
He's gonna get
time
an
travel time, baby.
Hell yeah. Perfect. Perfect.
I had to make it a soundbite.
I
Well,
love it.
Kyuchi's first thought, once he kind of just realized, like, shit, I just died. Shit, I'm looking at my body. Shit, I know what this means. His first thought was, quote, I'll never get another chance. This might be a great opportunity to go to the past and the future, beyond space and time, end quote. And that he did, kind of literally. By that, I mean he may have overshot the future and the past just a little bit by accidentally going into the fifth dimension. At this point, I need a pee break.
For everybody that's listening, Gil is on a pee break.
They just heard that. They just like, I'll be right back.
And watching. And everybody gets to see the great lengths that we go to create this podcast. Gil runs off to the bathroom halfway through the episode. I sit here and watch and drink there's anything that you guys want to see us do in the middle of an episode for our breaks, let us know. We'll create something. Something very interesting. Cheers. Cheers. And Gil's not going to know I said all this stuff either.
All
Welcome
right.
back, Gil.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okie dokies. So yeah, we're already past this time travel time, baby, which it is. Let's see. I'm gonna start from the top.
You just wanted to say this again.
You know what I'm gonna do. It's time travel time, baby.
Hell yeah!
Woo! Kyuchi's first thought was, quote, "I'll never get another chance. This might be a great opportunity to go to the past and the future, beyond space and time," end quote. And that he did, kind of literally. By that, I mean he may have overshot the future and the past just a little bit by accidentally going into the fifth dimension. Let me explain. On this trip, Kyuchi felt himself full on get launched into what can only be described as a Stargate-like experience where he ended up racing towards and being partially consumed by what he calls the greater universal mind. Buckle up. Shit's about to get trippy.
He skipped
Now-
the fourth dimension.
Nah, fuck that. Fuck the fourth. I'm going to the fifth, baby.
Going to the fifth.
Now, in this place, which he insists is a place that exists beyond our understanding of existence, there is a large thing, a whirlpool of realities, blending, pulling, spitting, and twisting all moments in history and the experiences of all living things since before and after time itself. There is no now, there is no then, there is just all, capital A, all of all, within the greater universal mind. To picture the feeling of this, imagine for just a moment, you're on the roof of a 100-story building, standing on the ledge, and you close your eyes. The presence of that reality still takes you into a sensation. You can feel the enormity of the moment, the scale of reality between the dimensions of length, width, and height, even with your eyes closed. It's an invisible sensation where you know something massive is right there without actually seeing it. Does that make sense? Like, it's just like,
yes.
you're
You
pulled,
know, if
like,
you go forward, you'll die.
well, to me at least, trying to explain a lot of convoluted explanations that I listened to and read through, it's like, it's a presence of a feeling. And if you haven't messed around with psychedelics too much, this might be a difficult concept for some folks to get. That's totally legit. If you have done psychedelics, I think you might understand this. A lot of times hallucinations with psychedelics are not quite literally visual. They're a strong suggestion that it's visually taking place.
Mm-hmm.
The more you do it, the more, at least in my experience, the more that kind of makes sense. It's not, you can snap yourself out of it most times, but it's an incredibly strong suggestion of your senses that something's melting, something's moving, something's forming, something, things of that nature, right? And this experience to me that he kind of explained is like, it's so overwhelming that if you close your eyes, again, walking up to the edge of a building, 100 stories up, you can look down, you can look out, you can look up. It's so overwhelming that when you close your eyes, you still feel the fear of falling forward, the acknowledgement of the distance, the acknowledgement of how far up you are. All of these things, like, they're still present even when you close your eyes. You can't see it, but you know it's there, right? It's this massive feeling, this expanse, right?
I feel like you just awakened one of my worst nightmares in the world, is being on a ledge 100 stories up and closing my eyes.
You're welcome. Welcome to the Black Cat Report.
Not sleeping tonight.
Well, where was I? Well, this is the feeling of the greater universal mind, a singular point of all consciousness throughout eternity. And according to Kyuchi, who, honestly, I'm going to have to take his word for this one since the man has died so many damn times, eventually, after some extended period of non-time time, all consciousness will return to it after its afterlife. It is the home of all thought. Now, if that first tab of spiritual acid didn't kick in yet, here's a glass of OJ and another hit. None of this means there is no individual. All beings, all life, all consciousness exists in their own moments and time as individuals, seeking out their own experiences, knowledge, and reality as independent entities for the length of their unique lifetimes. Kyuchi uses computers as a metaphor here, saying the fifth dimension, where the universal mind exists, is basically like one central computer tied into a network of smaller computers. Each has their own functions, operating systems, processors, models, and types, but each feeds information back to the central computer, turning it into a large data warehouse of each computer's knowledge and work. They are at the same time still separate, but still connected.
That makes
trippy,
sense. Do you remember when you talked about the idea that what happens when thoughts? Yeah. So when we talked a long time ago, when you talked about thoughts, do they ever, like, the energy of your thought? Since energy is neither created nor destroyed, right? It's just there.
Yep.
You know, it's, where does it go? I guess a central network processing hub, like the Borg.
Well, in a sense, consciousness and our souls work like self-replicating drones cast out into this three-dimensional universe to independently explore and eventually report back to the fifth dimension. This shit, I have a whole write-up on this somewhere. This shit blew my fucking mind because this, what he's describing, is incredibly similar to a place some of you may have heard about before. The Akashic Records, a place that exists beyond existence, that all around the world, for all of recorded history, many famous psychics, fortune tellers, and mystics have described and claimed to have tapped into as the source of their knowledge. Most notably, Edgar Cayce accidentally stumbled across how to access it when he tried meditation in order to get rid of his debilitating headaches. Just gonna pause for thought right there. Well, once Cayce did this, he fell into a non-dimensional trance that eventually led to people asking him questions, generally via his secretary, who would read letters people sent to him. Well, it's been claimed and backed up by literally thousands of cases. He was able to tell people where lost objects were, how to cure incurable diseases and ailments, winning lottery numbers, the exact location of oil and other natural resources on people's lands and parts of the world Casey had never heard of or visited, and so much more. This was all very well documented and something debunkers still struggle to dismiss to this day. I fucking love Edgar Casey, whose final resting place, by the way, is about a 5-minute walk from the house we're trying to investigate in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Shameless plug. Anyways, back to Kyuchi. What'd you say?
And he predicted his resting place. I will be resting here.
I wouldn't be surprised. Anyways, back to Kyuchi, who, still wanting to explore after experiencing this timeless, ethereal kind of what the fuck did I just tap into sensation, right? He began to think about the future, but specifically, and he learned this at that point, a future based on his own timeline and dimension, which only means one thing, Joey. It's time travel time, baby.
Hell yeah.
Woo!
It is.
Yes.
It really is time travel time.
Now,
But feasible time travel time.
now, Kyuchi was standing in a room that was inside of what he would later describe as a futuristic Japanese hospital. He was looking at a patient as they were being scanned and treated with an invisible wavelength system by a strange donut-shaped device. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but he claimed he saw this in 2009. And if you want to go down a rabbit hole, you should Google wavelength hospital breakthroughs just in your free time. I would strongly recommend that and look at the articles and the dates of those articles. But almost immediately after seeing this, he was pulled back into his body as doctors and nurses had successfully shocked his heart into beating again and also pumped him full of what's basically an intestinal glue and basically what's an intesticle testicle?
Intesticle.
And also pumped him full of what's basically an intestinal glue that plugged the hole in his ruptured stomach. Now, I don't know how this man's life could be more of a pure coin toss, but after he was stabilized, he was soon taken to the Chinese Academy of Science for the surgeries he needed in order to survive, which, quoting now from an article, the Chinese Academy is the world's largest research organization, comprising around 60,000 researchers working in 114 institutes, and has been consistently ranked as the top research organizations around the world, end quote. Basically, 60,000 of the best of the best of the best doctors and scientists in the world were now going to be frantically putting all their skills together to save Kyuchi. This is insane.
Yeah.
Right? But
right place, right time.
It also kind of explains why, like, he's survived 3 deaths and pulled a hat trick on the Grim Reaper, right? Like that.
For sure. Yeah.
If anything's going to do it, right? Well, Kyuchi is the person who pulls this off, right? Sorry. Trying to make up words while I can't read the faded ink. Surviving death 3 times. Like, he pulls a hat trick on the Grim Reaper. Who does that? Kyuchi does. After being taken to the Chinese Academy of Science, where he was set to undergo emergency surgery. But during the pre-op screening, he experienced a coronary vein rupture, which led to him losing thousands of cc's of blood. This immediately threw his body into shock right before it killed him and left him staring yet again at his body laying on the operating room table while frantic doctors and nurses fought like hell to bring him back to life.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where we'll pick back up next week with Kyuchi's third death and third life.
Wow, you tricked me. You tricked me into a part 3. What an
I had
asshole.
to, man. I'm sorry. I
You tricked me.
There's. That's
too
one
much.
thing that I will always stand by, and that Joey, you've always been like super fucking supportive of every time I've gone on these research like rants and quests where I'm like, Joey, I've gone too deep, and you're like, hey man, keep digging in that rabbit hole. It's okay, and I'm like, I've got to go deeper.
Always will be supporting that.
There's too much, and honestly, since the last episode came out, while double checking some research I had already done on Kyuchi, I was Googling his name, as one does, and we were the 4th search result for him in English speaking, in America's English speaking like Google.
2 + 2.
We were literally the 4th search result, like our first episode, and I was like, there is nothing about this dude in the English speaking world.
Hell yeah.
A random TikTok video that we made about him became the number 4 search result. And I think we were also the number 9 search result too, which was like a link to like where to listen to an episode or something.
Perfect.
But all this added up to just me having an intense, like, I guess like a fear of not covering his story thoroughly. Because at that point, I'm like, we have a fucking responsibility to not just kind of go through and yada yada through shit.
For
like,
sure.
This story is incredible. And we have the responsibility now, because if anybody in the English speaking world a year from now, 2 years from now, whenever, comes across this dude and they type in his name, we're going to be the ones that are showing up. And I want to make sure that they have the best foundation possible to jump off of and go farther than we have. This isn't a story that's just been read and read and read and overread and simplified over and over again ad nauseum. This is new, and that kind of like hit me where I was like, I wasn't even trying to come up that high in search results. Holy fuck. So we're gonna get into it. There's gonna be a part 3, which, looking back now, time travel joke there.
You're welcome.
That means 3 episodes for 3 deaths. You're welcome. So it makes sense. It makes sense.
It does.
This next episode, homie does not fucking hesitate to go as far back in time as possible. Holy shit, he gets weird.
Yeah.
And we're gonna start that off. We're gonna start that off like jumping straight into it. No bullshit. Yeah. Back to the bang. But yeah.
I didn't mean that. Well,
Anyways,
thank you all for listening and for coming on the live version of this, and for everybody watching and from our Patreon to see the actual live version of our videos with no cutting. So thank you all for listening, and we appreciate it. Copy Kitty, you're the best. Thank you so much. And if you come in and become Patreon supporters, we'll be naming you as well in our videos. So thank you. And I feel like there's one more thing you got to play before we go.
I don't know, but if you have to, go to sleep, because it's time travel time, baby.
Hell yeah. Woo! Bye.
No, but y'all are the best. We love you, and bye.